Okay, so you want to own a resort, not a hotel, a resort. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. A hotel is where you sleep when you are somewhere else for a reason. A resort is the reason. Nobody flies to the Maldives because they had a meeting. Nobody drives 3 hours into the mountains because they needed somewhere to park their suitcase. The resort is the destination. The resort is the entire point of the trip. And that one distinction between a place you stay and a place you go to changes every single number in this business in ways that most people who dream about owning one have never fully thought through. Picture what you are imagining right now. Overwater bungalows. A pool that disappears into the ocean horizon. A restaurant where the chef grows the herbs 20 feet from your table. Staff who remember your name from last year. Guests who arrive stressed and leave transformed. And somewhere behind all of that, quietly, invisibly, a business generating revenue from every single moment of the guest experience. The room, the spa, the restaurant, the excursions, the minibar, the beach chair rental, the sunset cocktail that costs $28 and takes 4 minutes to make. That picture is real. Those resorts exist. Some of them generate extraordinary returns for the people who own them. Here is what the picture does not show you. The $40 million infrastructure upgrade you did not budget for. The hurricane that closed your property for 4 months and generated zero revenue while fixed costs kept running. The luxury brand flag on your building that takes 35% of your gross revenue before you have paid a single employee. The guest who spent $12,000 on a 5-night stay and left you a 2-star review because the beach had seaweed on a Tuesday. And the fundamental economic tension at the heart of every resort on earth. The tension between creating an experience so exceptional that guests pay extraordinary prices and managing a cost structure so complex that those extraordinary prices are sometimes barely enough. That tension is what we are going to take apart today. Before a single dollar changes hands, you need to understand something that separates resort economics from every other hospitality business. A hotel sells a room. A resort sells a world. When a guest checks into a standard hotel, the transaction is simple. Room for the night, maybe breakfast. Everything else happens somewhere else in the city. The hotel's job is to provide a comfortable place to sleep and a functional base of operations. When a guest checks into a resort, the entire transaction inverts. The resort is not the base. The resort is the destination. And because the guest is not going anywhere else, because your property is the entirety of their experience for 3, 5, or 7 days, every single thing they want, need, or might be persuaded to want becomes your revenue opportunity and your operational responsibility simultaneously. This is the economic superpower of the resort model. A hotel guest who wants dinner goes to a restaurant in the city. The hotel sees none of that revenue. A resort guest who wants dinner goes to your restaurant. You see all of it. A hotel guest who wants a massage books an appointment somewhere in town. A resort guest books your spa. A hotel guest who wants entertainment finds it somewhere else. A resort guest is looking at your programming schedule. Capture rates, the percentage of total guest spending that stays within the property, are the defining financial metric of resort economics. A well-run luxury resort captures 60 to 75% of total guest spending on property. Every percentage point of capture rate improvement goes directly to the bottom line. This is also the economic vulnerability of the resort model. Because you are the entire world for your guest, you are responsible for everything. The weather that ruins the beach day, the food that disappoints at dinner, the activity that falls short of expectations, the pillow that is slightly too soft. In a city hotel, a bad dinner means the guest goes somewhere else tomorrow night. In a resort, a bad dinner means a 2-star review that follows your property for 2 years on every booking platform matters. The upside and the downside of the resort model are the same thing. Total capture means total responsibility. Not all resorts are the same business. And understanding which type you are building before you spend a dollar is the most important decision in the entire process. Type 1, the destination resort. Large scale, hundreds of rooms, multiple restaurants, multiple pools, a full spa, a golf course, a beach club, a kids club, conference facilities. Designed to serve every possible guest need without anyone ever leaving the property. These are the resorts you see on the covers of travel magazines. The ones with the infinity pools and the overwater bungalows and the Michelin-starred dining. They generate extraordinary revenue per available room, often $500 to $2,000 or more per night in premium markets, and they require extraordinary capital to build and maintain. A full-scale destination resort in a premium location costs $500,000 to $2 million per key to develop from scratch. A 200-key resort in the Caribbean or Southeast Asia represents a development cost of $100 million to $400 million before opening day. Type 2, the boutique resort, small scale, 20 to 80 rooms, deeply personalized service, a specific identity, a wellness retreat, an adventure resort, an adults-only hideaway, a cultural immersion property. The competitive advantage is not amenities, but atmosphere and specificity. Boutique resorts compete on curation rather than comprehensiveness. They attract guests who have already stayed at the big destination resorts and want something more intimate, more authentic, more aligned with a specific value or aesthetic. Development costs run $200,000 to $800,000 per key. A 40-key boutique resort costs $8 million to $32 million to build properly. Type 3. The drive-to resort, located within 2 to 4 hours of a major metropolitan area. Accessible by car rather than requiring a flight. Serves weekend and short break travel rather than once-a-year vacation travel. These properties, mountain lodges, lake resorts, wine country retreats, have a fundamentally different demand profile from destination resorts. They serve a local market rather than a global one. They generate more consistent year-round occupancy in markets with mild seasonality, and they require significantly less capital than remote destination properties because the infrastructure already exists nearby. Development costs run $150,000 to $500,000 per key. A 60-key drive-to resort costs $9 million to $30 million. Understanding which type you are building determines your customer, your capital requirement, your revenue model, and your competitive landscape. Building a destination resort in a drive-to market is a category error that no amount of operational excellence can fix. This is the section that separates the people who have actually developed a resort from the people who have thought about it. The land resort land is among the most expensive real estate on earth because the characteristics that make land suitable for a resort, oceanfront, mountain views, proximity to natural attractions, accessibility from major travel hubs, are the same characteristics that every other resort developer, real estate investor, and government agency wants simultaneously. Beachfront land in the Caribbean ranges from $500,000 to $5 million per acre, depending on the island, the specific location, and what development rights exist. In Hawaii, comparable oceanfront land trades at $2 million to $10 million per acre. Mountain resort land near established ski areas in Colorado runs $500,000 to $3 million per acre. A resort footprint of 10 to 50 acres, enough for the rooms, the amenities, the landscaping, the back-of-house operations, and the natural environment that guests are paying to experience, costs $5 million to $150 million for the land alone before a foundation is poured. The infrastructure resorts are frequently built in remote or semi-remote locations where infrastructure does not exist. Roads must be built or improved. Power must be brought in or generated on site. Water systems must be engineered. Sewage treatment must be constructed. Internet and telecommunications infrastructure must be established. Infrastructure development for a remote destination resort adds $5 million to $30 million to the development cost that never appears on any guest-facing element of the property. It is invisible to the guest. It is unavoidable for the developer. The buildings. Room construction at resort quality, the materials, the finishes, the bathroom specifications, the furniture, the technology integration runs $300 to $800 per square foot for mid-luxury and $800 to $2,000 per square foot for ultra-luxury properties. A 400 square foot resort room at mid-luxury specification costs $120,000 to $320,000 to construct. The bathroom alone in a luxury resort room, the soaking tub, the rainfall shower, the stone finishes, the heated floors cost $30,000 to $80,000 of that total. Common areas, the lobby, the restaurants, the spa, the pool areas, the beach club, typically cost more per square foot than the rooms because they carry the visual identity of the property and are photographed in every guest review and travel media feature. The equipment and operating systems. A resort runs on invisible infrastructure that guests never see. Industrial laundry equipment, commercial kitchen equipment for multiple food and beverage outlets, spa equipment, fitness center equipment, pool filtration and treatment systems, property management software, point-of-sale systems, revenue management technology, security systems. The total equipment cost for a mid-sized resort, $3 million to $15 million. The brand flag. Most resorts do not operate independently. They affiliate with a brand, Four Seasons, Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, IHG, Aman, Rosewood, that provides reservation system access, loyalty program integration, global marketing reach, and operational standards. That flag comes at a price. Brand affiliation fees for luxury resort brands typically include an initial key money payment of $5,000 to $25,000 per room, ongoing royalty fees of 5 to 7% of gross room revenue, marketing contribution fees of 2 to 4% of gross room revenue, reservation system fees, loyalty program costs, and frequent quality audit requirements that mandate expensive renovations on the brand's timeline rather than the owner's. On a resort generating $20 million in annual room revenue, brand fees consume $1.4 million to $2.2 million per year before the owner has paid a single employee or replaced a single piece of furniture. Total development cost. Adding land, infrastructure, construction, equipment, pre-opening costs, and working capital reserve. A boutique resort of 40 keys in a premium location, $15 million to $50 million. A mid-sized destination resort of 150 keys, $75 million to $250 million. A large luxury destination resort of 300 keys, $200 million to $600 million. These are not estimates designed to discourage. These are the actual numbers that appear on actual development budgets for actual resorts that open every year. A resort generates revenue from every moment of the guest experience. Understanding the full revenue architecture and how each stream interacts with the others is the key to understanding why resorts can be extraordinary businesses when they work. Room revenue, the foundation. Revenue per available room, RevPAR in industry terminology, is the primary performance metric for any lodging business. For resorts, this number can reach extraordinary levels in premium markets. The average daily rate for luxury resort rooms in Hawaii in 2025 was $687. In the Maldives, average daily rates for premium resorts exceeded $1,200. In the Caribbean luxury segment, rates ranged from $500 to $2,000 depending on the property and the season. A 100-room luxury resort in Hawaii running at 72% annual occupancy, strong for a destination resort, at an average daily rate of $650, generates $17.1 million in annual room revenue. That sounds extraordinary until you understand that room revenue is not where most of the profit in a resort business actually comes from. Food and beverage. In a resort where guests are on property for multiple days and have limited alternatives, food and beverage revenue can equal or exceed room revenue in total, and dramatically exceeds it in margin contribution. A guest spending 5 nights at a luxury resort might spend $500 on the room per night, $2,500 in room revenue. That same guest might spend $200 per day on food and beverages across breakfast, lunch, dinner, poolside service, and bar tabs. $1,000 in food and beverage revenue over the stay. Gross margins on food and beverage in a well-run resort run 65 to 75%, dramatically higher than the 30 to 40% margins a standalone restaurant achieves. Because the captive audience eliminates the price sensitivity that limits what standalone restaurants can charge. A glass of wine that sells for $12 at a neighborhood restaurant sells for $22 at a resort restaurant. Not because the wine is different, because the alternative is driving 45 minutes to find a neighborhood restaurant. The spa revenue at luxury resorts typically runs 8 to 15% of total property revenue, with gross margins of 35 to 55% after therapist labor costs. A 100-room luxury resort with a well-programmed spa generating $1.5 million in annual spa revenue produces $525,000 to $825,000 in gross profit from treatments alone, before retail product sales, which carry margins of 40 to 60%. The spa is also one of the primary drivers of repeat visits and positive reviews. Guests who have transformative spa experiences are significantly more likely to return and to recommend the property. Activities and excursions. Guided tours, water sports, fitness classes, cooking demonstrations, cultural experiences, helicopter excursions, private boat charters. Resorts and destination markets can generate $200 to $500 per guest per day in activities revenue, if the programming is well designed and well marketed. On a 100-room resort at 72% occupancy, with an average party size of 2 guests, the total annual guest nights available for activity programming represent significant revenue opportunity. A property capturing $150 per guest per day in activities generates $3.9 million annually from a revenue stream that requires relatively low capital investment compared to the room or food and beverage infrastructure. The total revenue picture. A well-run 100-room luxury resort in a premium destination market generates room revenue, $17.1 million, food and beverage, $12 million, spa, $1.8 million, activities and retail, $4.2 million, total, $35.1 million from 100 rooms. In a strong year, that is the economic superpower of total capture. The hotel across town generating the same room revenue captures perhaps $17 million total. The resort generates $35 million from the same number of guests because it captures every dollar of their spending rather than sending them into the city to spend it somewhere else. Against that $35 million in revenue, the cost structure of a resort is equally complex and equally significant. Labor. A full-service luxury resort employs approximately 1 to 1.5 employees per room key. A 100-room property employs 100 to 150 people. In premium markets, Hawaii, the Caribbean, major mountain resort destinations, average total compensation, including benefits, runs $55,000 to $80,000 per employee annually. Total annual labor costs for a 100-room luxury resort, $5.5 million to $12 million. Labor is also the most operationally complex cost in the resort business. A resort operates 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, across multiple departments: front desk, housekeeping, food and beverage, spa, activities, engineering, security, and administration, each with its own scheduling requirements, skill requirements, and management layer. Finding and retaining qualified staff is one of the defining operational challenges of resort management, particularly in remote locations where the resort may be the largest employer in the area and where housing for employees is often scarce and expensive. Cost of goods, food, beverage, spa products, activity supplies, and retail inventory typically run 25 to 35% of their respective revenue lines. On $18 million in food, beverage, and spa revenue, cost of goods runs $4.5 million to $6.3 million annually. Brand fees. On $17.1 million in room revenue, brand royalty and marketing fees of 7 to 10% consume $1.2 million to $1.7 million per year before quality audit compliance costs, which can add $500,000 to $2 million in any year when the brand requires renovations or system upgrades. Property operating costs. Utilities for a full-service luxury resort, running pools, air conditioning across every room and public area, multiple kitchens, laundry operations, and extensive exterior lighting run $1.5 million to $4 million annually. depending on the market and the property's energy efficiency investment. Insurance for a resort: property insurance, general liability, business interruption, workers' compensation, and specialized coverage for water sports and adventure activities runs $500,000 to $2.5 million annually in 2026. In hurricane-exposed markets, those numbers are significantly higher and climbing year over year as climate risk is repriced across the insurance industry. Maintenance and capital reserves: the ongoing cost of keeping a luxury property in the condition that justifies luxury pricing, run 4 to 6% of total revenue annually. On $35 million in revenue, that is $1.4 million to $2.1 million per year in maintenance spending, plus a capital reserve for major renovations that typically run $50,000 to $150,000 per room every 7 to 10 years. Total operating cost: labor, cost of goods, brand fees, utilities, insurance, maintenance, marketing, management fees, and administrative costs combine to produce total annual operating costs for a 100-room luxury resort of $24 million to $30 million. Against revenue of $35.1 million, net operating income before debt service runs $5 million to $11 million. Weather and natural disaster: a resort's greatest asset is its natural setting. Its greatest vulnerability is the same thing. A hurricane that makes landfall near a Caribbean resort does not just damage the property, it closes it for weeks or months. During closure, room revenue goes to zero. Food and beverage revenue goes to zero. Spa and activities revenue goes to zero. Fixed cost, debt service, core staff retention, insurance, property taxes continue. Hurricane Maria in 2017 closed multiple Puerto Rico resorts for 6 to 18 months. Some never reopened. The financial impact of a single major storm event can exceed the property's entire annual net operating income and consume capital reserves built over years. Business interruption insurance covers some of this exposure. It does not cover all of it. And in 2026, business interruption premiums in hurricane-exposed markets have reached levels that make comprehensive coverage prohibitively expensive for many resort owners. Seasonality: most resorts do not operate at consistent demand year-round. Caribbean resorts see peak demand from December through April and dramatically lower occupancy from June through November, which corresponds almost exactly with hurricane season. Mountain ski resorts peak in winter and face the challenge of maintaining year-round relevance in warmer months. Beach resorts in temperate climates peak in summer and struggle through shoulder seasons. Seasonality means that the revenue model must generate enough excess in peak months to cover fixed costs during low periods. A resort that generates $8 million in profit during its 6 peak months but faces $4 million in fixed costs during its 6 low months is a healthy business. A resort that generates $5 million in peak months against the same $4 million in fixed costs is a cash flow crisis that compounds year over year. The review economy: a luxury resort guest paying $700 per night arrives with expectations calibrated to that price point. Every element of the experience, the check-in process, the pillow firmness, the pool temperature, the server's response time, the sunset view from the restaurant, is evaluated against a standard set by the price rather than by what the price actually covers operationally. A guest who books a $200 hotel room and finds it slightly below expectations leaves a 3-star review. A guest who books a $700 resort room and finds anything slightly below expectations leaves a 1-star review with a detailed account of every disappointment. Because at $700 per night, they feel entitled to perfection and feel personally wronged by its absence. In 2026, TripAdvisor, Google Reviews, and Booking.com reviews directly impact occupancy rates in ways that were not true 10 years ago. A resort that drops from a 4.7 to a 4.4 average rating on Google can see measurable occupancy declines within weeks. A sustained period of mixed reviews can permanently damage a property's positioning in a market where guests have alternatives at every price point. Managing the review economy: the systematic pursuit of exceptional guest experiences, specifically because those experiences generate the reviews that drive future bookings, is as important an operational function as managing the kitchen or the housekeeping department. Let us build the complete financial picture. The property, 80-room boutique luxury resort, Caribbean island, brand affiliated with a mid-tier luxury flag. Operating year-round with a pronounced peak season. Annual revenue, strong year. Room revenue at $420 ADR. 68% occupancy, $8.3 million. Food and beverage, $5.8 million. Spa and wellness, $1.1 million. Activities and retail, $1.6 million. Total, $16.8 million. Annual operating costs. Labor, 90 employees at $52,000 average, $4.68 million. Cost of goods, $2.1 million. Brand fees, at 9% of room revenue, $747,000. Utilities, $980,000. Insurance, $620,000. Maintenance and capital reserve, $840,000. Marketing, $504,000. Management fees, at 3% of total revenue, $504,000. Administrative and other, $420,000. Total, $11.4 million. Net operating income, $5.4 million. Net operating margin, 32%. Annual debt service on $35 million of development financing at 7%. Approximately $2.8 million. Net cash flow after debt service, $2.6 million. On a $40 million total investment, land, construction, equipment, pre-opening, that is a cash-on-cash return of 6.5%. Not extraordinary, but stable, growing, and attached to an asset that appreciates as the brand is built. Now model a hurricane closure of 4 months during what would have been low to mid-season. Revenue loss, approximately $3.2 million. Unrecoverable fixed costs during closure, $1.8 million. Repair and remediation costs not covered by insurance, $800,000. Year impact, negative $5.8 million swing. That turns a $2.6 million cash flow year into a $3.2 million cash flow deficit, which requires either drawing on reserves, additional financing, or equity injection from ownership. This is why experienced resort developers maintain cash reserves of 12 to 18 months of fixed operating costs, and why undercapitalized resort projects fail not because the business model is wrong, but because the capital structure cannot survive the inevitable bad year. If you have watched this far, you understand resort economics at a level most people who dream about owning one never reach. Subscribe right now. Every week, we go this deep on a business that looks one way from the outside and turns out to be something completely different underneath. Drop a comment. Tell us what you want us to break down next. We read every single one. Here is what the resort business actually is, stripped of everything the infinity pool photograph is designed to make you feel. A resort is one of the most capital-intensive, operationally complex, weather-exposed, and guest expectation-sensitive businesses in all of commerce. The entry price is real. The weather risk is real. The brand dependency is real. The review economy pressure is real. And the upside, when the model works, is equally real. The capture rate economics, the ability to generate $35 million in revenue from the same 100 guests who might generate $17 million in a standard hotel, produce margin profiles that justify the capital investment for owners who get the location, the concept, the brand relationship, and the capital structure right simultaneously. The resorts that build lasting value share specific characteristics. They own the land rather than leasing it because the land appreciates as the brand is built and provides collateral that stabilizes the financing structure. They invest in staff housing and staff retention because in remote resort locations, talent is as scarce as the beachfront it works on. They build direct booking relationships with guests rather than depending entirely on online travel agencies that take 15 to 25% commissions on every booking. And they treat the capital reserve, the fund that covers the hurricane, the failed HVAC system, the brand mandated renovation, as a non negotiable operating requirement rather than a discretionary buffer. The ones who fail treat the peak season revenue as the answer to every question. They deploy capital during good years instead of building reserves. They defer maintenance to protect short-term cash flow. And they discover that a luxury resort operating below its physical standards very quickly becomes a luxury resort operating below its pricing power. The infinity pool was never really the product. The feeling a guest has when they sit beside it, unhurried, untethered, temporarily convinced that the world beyond the property line does not require their attention, that is the product. And producing that feeling reliably for guest after guest, season after season, in a building that costs tens of millions of dollars to create and hundreds of thousands of dollars per month to operate, is one of the most demanding business challenges in all of hospitality. The people who get it right build something rare, a place people save up to return to. And that, in the end, is worth considerably more than the land it sits on.